Our topic for today is the Hunchback of Notre Dame versus the Compañera Cuba, which is the local version of the Hunchback of Notre Dame. The Hunchback of Notre Dame by Victor Hugo has many different film adaptations. It has around 10 film versions or adaptations. We have 1911, 1923, 1939, 1956, 1977, 1982, 1986, 1996, and 1997. My focus is the 1939 silent film. Because it is a silent film, the conversations were actually taken or were actually shown as taken from the novel itself, different quotations from the novel itself. Now, for the Compañera Cuba by Pablo S. Gomez, we will focus on Imang, who is Vilma Santos in the film, the 1973 film Compañera Cuba. And both of these films or film adaptations were based on the novel by Victor Hugo, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, in 1831. Pablo S. Gomez was actually inspired and influenced by The Hunchback of Notre Dame when he made Compañera Cuba. Okay, so there were two characters, Quasimodo and Esmeralda. They are the other characters that we are focusing on, and they actually show the paradox of othering, the paradox of grotesque othering. When you say grotesque othering, it's about how somebody has been othered for their physical appearance. In Quasimodo's case, he was othered because of his ugliness, and for Esmeralda, because of her beauty. Quasimodo has a hunched back, and Esmeralda has an exotic beauty, okay, or has an exotic face and body. All right, so what is your guide question for this? The guide question for this is, what instances show how both of them were othered for their appearances, specifically physical? Okay, so there is an extension of grotesque othering in The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Quasimodo and Esmeralda, they were both nice people, but even though they are kind-hearted, and they were good as far as the entire novel is concerned, they were seen as criminals and suspected and accused of crimes simply because of their physical appearances. Now, the expansion of grotesque othering is actually how hunchbacks and gypsies were part of the outcasts back then. Both characters are adopted first and foremost. Esme was stolen. She actually has royal blood, but she was stolen by the gypsies. And then Quasimodo was just left, abandoned, at the church door. Nobody really knew who was his parents, or who were his parents, rather. Okay, so the hunchbacks were, of course, they have deformed backs, and the gypsies were considered cursed. And the extension of othering here is how they are imperfect since their infancy. Okay, so this state of innate imperfection makes them freaks of nature. I don't know if you've heard of the term freak of nature, but this is more or less relevant to the theory of Bakhtin when it comes to grotesque, which is called carnivalesque. So carnivalesque, this is a term which is used to describe the people who are part of a carnival or of a circus. Those who were part of circuses and carnivals, they were considered the freaks of nature because they have certain looks, certain traits, qualities, and capabilities which are considered abnormal or not normal. And they are not part of a normal community. Rather, they had to make their own community so that they will have their own support group. Okay, so In the history of this grotesque othering, extension of grotesque othering, such as shown here in the Hunchback of Notre Dame, if a misfortune happens before you were born, it's okay. If it happens after, it's also okay. But if it's during your infancy, superstitions say that you aren't blessed, that you are cursed, thus you are othered. And Quasimodo and Esmeralda, both of them, they were, during infancy, they both had these so-called misfortunes. And since they are considered cursed by the community, they are othered. All right. Okay. Now, in our novel, Hunchback of Notre Dame, Esmeralda was suspected of murder, and this is the reason because she is accused of killing Captain Phoebus. Captain Phoebus is the leader of the guards of the palace, and since this this victim or so-called victim is considered part of the aristocracy, and she is not part of the aristocracy, she is already looked at with suspicion. It's that simple because she wasn't at par with the status of the victim, and the victim happens to be from a higher status. Okay, so Esmeralda, who is part of the gypsy community, she is somehow considered as pretty in their community, but she's othered for being pretty, and she was relegated to being just an entertainer. She's not being taken seriously. Just as Quasimodo, he was also not taken seriously. He is actually considered the king of fools, and aside from that, his employment was to be the ring, to be the person who will ring the bells of the cathedral of the Notre Dame. And although this isn't an unfortunate job, this is not considered a real job either. Okay, all right.